What happens when one night changes everything? Natasha Williams came to Seoul chasing art and freedom, but she found something far more dangerous, a man whose touch felt like salvation and whose secrets could destroy her. Ha-jun Young wasn't supposed to be hers. He was shadows and silk, power wrapped in silence, a king in a world she never knew existed. Now she's carrying his child, and the city's most ruthless crime syndicate wants her dead. Love shouldn't survive in a world built on blood, but sometimes the heart doesn't ask for permission. This is a story of passion that defies logic, sacrifice that breaks souls, and a love that burns so bright it could ignite a war. Will their love be enough to survive the crossfire, or will the underworld swallow them whole? Stay until the end to find out, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more heart-stopping stories that will leave you breathless. Natasha Williams stared at the two pink lines until they blurred into one angry slash across her vision. Her hands trembled as she gripped the cold porcelain, knuckles white, breath coming in short gasps that fogged the mirror before her. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not like this. No, 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 she whispered, but the test didn't change. The lines remained stubbornly pink, accusatory, final. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since that night, since the world tilted on its axis and she'd let herself fall into arms that felt like home, but belonged to a ghost. Ha-jun. She didn't even know his last name. All she had was a memory of dark eyes that seemed to see through her skin to something deeper, hands that knew exactly how to make her forget every careful rule she'd built around her heart, and a voice that rumbled through her chest when he whispered her name against her throat like a prayer. And a pendant. She had the pendant. Natasha stumbled out of the bathroom of her tiny Seoul apartment, the morning light harsh against her eyes. The city hummed below, indifferent to her crisis, millions of people moving through their lives while hers crumbled. She sank onto her bed, reaching for the silver pendant on her nightstand. It was small, elegant, engraved with an intricate design she'd assumed was just decorative. A dragon wrapped around what looked like a lotus flower, rendered in such fine detail that she could trace each scale with her fingertip. He'd left it behind. She'd found it tangled in her sheets that morning when she woke alone, the imprint of his body still warm beside her, but the man himself vanished like smoke. No note. No number. Just this piece of silver and the ache of knowing she'd never see him again. Except now she would have to find him. Now she had no choice. Natasha's phone buzzed, shattering her spiral. Her best friend's name flashed across the screen, Imani, calling from New York, probably with another lecture about when Natasha was coming home from her little Asian adventure. She let it go to voicemail. How could she explain this? That she'd gotten pregnant by a man whose last name she didn't know, in a country where she barely spoke the language, during what was supposed to be a 6-month photography sabbatical to find herself. Well, she'd found something all right. The nausea hit again, rolling through her stomach like a wave. Natasha barely made it back to the bathroom before she was sick, retching until there was nothing left but bile and fear. When she finally raised her head, her reflection stared back, brown skin pale with shock, natural curls a wild halo around her face, eyes too large and frightened. At 27, she'd thought she had life figured out. Graduate from art school, build her photography portfolio, travel the world capturing stories through her lens, maybe fall in love with someone safe and appropriate and decidedly not mysterious. Ha-jun had been none of those things. She remembered every detail of that night with painful clarity. The gallery opening in Gangnam, her photos of Seoul's underbelly displayed alongside works by local artists. She'd felt so proud, so accomplished, drinking champagne and discussing her vision of capturing the city's duality, the gleaming skyscrapers and the dark alleys, the ancient temples and neon-soaked streets. Then the after-party at some exclusive club she'd been dragged to by her gallery contact, all pulsing bass and beautiful people and drinks that kept appearing in her hand. The men who'd cornered her near the VIP section had been drunk and aggressive, their hands reaching, their words slurred but intent clear. She'd been trying to extract herself without causing a scene when he appeared. Ha-jun. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't thrown a punch, had simply stepped between her and them and said something in Korean so quiet she couldn't hear it over the music. But whatever he said made those men go white. They'd bowed, actually bowed, and disappeared into the crowd like they'd never existed. "Are you all right?" he'd asked in perfect English, and when she'd looked up into his face, something in her chest had simply stopped. He was beautiful in a way that seemed almost unfair, sharp cheekbones and a mouth that was almost too pretty for a man, dark hair swept back from his forehead. But it was his eyes that held her, deep and dark and carrying a weight she recognized. Loneliness. The same loneliness that had driven her halfway around the world. They'd talked for hours, tucked into a quiet corner, while the party raged around them. He'd asked about her photography, really asked, listening like her words mattered. She'd learned he loved old jazz music, that he'd studied philosophy in university, that he sometimes stood on his balcony at night and wondered what it would be like to just leave. To be someone else. Somewhere else. "Where would you go?" she'd asked. "Anywhere no one knows my name," he'd answered, and something in his voice made her heart crack. When he'd kissed her, it felt like drowning and surfacing all at once. When he'd taken her back to what she'd assumed was his apartment, sleek, minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, she'd gone willingly, desperately, like she was trying to crawl inside his skin and make a home there. They'd made love with an urgency that bordered on violence, like they both knew it was all they'd ever have. After, lying in his arms while the city glittered below, she'd felt safer than she had in years. She should have known that kind of safety was an illusion. Now, gripping the pendant until it bit into her palm, Natasha made a decision. She would find him. Seoul was massive, yes, but she had this pendant. She had her camera full of photos from that night, including a few where he appeared in the background. She had the club's name. She had determination born of desperation. She had no other choice. The next 3 days were a blur of dead ends and strange looks. The club owner claimed not to know anyone matching Ha-jun's description. Her gallery contact suddenly became hard to reach. The jewelry stores she visited to ask about the pendant's origin all gave her the same tight-lipped response, a shake of the head, a quick denial, a sudden urgency to help the next customer. By the 4th day, Natasha was ready to scream. It was Detective Park Jae-hyun who found her. She was sitting in a cafe in Itaewon, staring at her laptop screen where she'd blown up the pendant's design, trying to find anything online that matched, when a man slid into the seat across from her. He was middle-aged, stocky, with tired eyes and a rumpled suit that had seen better days. "Natasha Williams," he said in English, not a question. "You've been asking about this symbol." He tapped her screen. "You should stop." Fear spiked through her. "Who are you?" "Someone trying to keep you alive." He pulled out a badge. "Detective Park, Seoul Metropolitan Police. You're looking for Ha-jun Young, aren't you?" The name hit her like a physical blow. Young. Ha-jun Young. Finally, a last name. "You know him?" "Everyone knows him. Or knows of him." Park's expression was grim. "Ms. Williams, Ha-jun Young is not who you think he is. He's the heir to the Young Crime Syndicate, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Seoul. His family controls everything from gambling to prostitution to drug trafficking. That pendant you're carrying? It's their symbol. Showing it around is like painting a target on your back." The world tilted. Natasha gripped the table edge, her voice barely a whisper. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Park pulled out a folder, spreading photos across the table. Ha-jun in a tailored suit, surrounded by hard-looking men in black. Ha-jun entering a building she recognized as a notorious nightclub. Ha-jun at what looked like a funeral, his face carved from stone. Young Ha-jun, 32 years old. Took over the family business 6 months ago when his father died under mysterious circumstances. He's dangerous, Ms. Williams. Whatever you think you had with him. I'm pregnant. The words burst out before she could stop them. I'm pregnant with his child. Park's face went pale. He cursed in Korean, then English, then Korean again. Does he know? I haven't seen him since that night. I've been trying to find him. You can't tell him. Park leaned forward urgently. If the syndicate finds out you exist, you become leverage. They'll use you to control him, or they'll kill you to hurt him. Either way, you're in danger. I'm not getting rid of this baby. Her hand moved protectively to her still flat stomach. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to leave Seoul. Tonight. Go back to America, have your baby there, forget Ha-jun Young exists. But Natasha was already shaking her head. Whatever Hajun was, whatever he'd done, he deserved to know. And some stubborn, foolish part of her that remembered the loneliness in his eyes believed he deserved a choice. I need to see him. That's suicide. Then help me do it safely. You're a cop. You must know how to contact him. Park stared at her for a long moment, then sighed the sigh of a man who knew he was about to make a terrible decision. There's a club in Gangnam. Waran. He'll be there tonight. But Ms. Williams? If you do this, there's no going back. You'll be in their world, and that world doesn't let people leave. Night fell over Seoul like a curtain, and Natasha stood outside Waran with her heart in her throat. The club was sleek and exclusive, a line of beautiful people waiting behind velvet ropes, while a bouncer the size of a small car decided their fates. She wore her best dress, black, simple, elegant, and the pendant around her neck, visible. Park had told her it would get her in. He'd also given her a phone number to call if things went wrong and made her promise to keep her real phone tracking on. When she approached the door, the bouncer's eyes went to the pendant and widened fractionally. He spoke into his earpiece in rapid Korean, then unhooked the rope. Top floor. Private elevator. The club interior was all red velvet and gold accents, pulsing with electronic music and writhing bodies. Natasha felt eyes on her as she made her way to the elevator, felt the weight of attention like a physical thing. The elevator ride seemed to take forever and no time at all. When the doors opened, she stepped into a different world. The top floor was quieter, more refined. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Seoul spread out like jewels on black velvet. And there, standing with his back to her looking out at the city, was Hajun. I wondered when you'd find me, he said without turning. His voice was the same, that low rumble that made her skin prickle. You shouldn't have come, Natasha. You left this. She touched the pendant. I thought you might want it back. He finally turned, and the sight of him stole her breath. He was exactly as she remembered, beautiful and dangerous and sad. But there was something harder in his eyes now, something colder. I left it deliberately. You weren't supposed to find me. Well, I did. Surprise. Her voice came out sharper than intended, fear manifesting as anger. Were you ever going to tell me? About who you are? What you do? No. Simple, brutal honesty. That night was a mistake. A beautiful mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. People like me don't get to have nights like that without consequences. Speaking of consequences, Natasha's hand moved to her stomach. I'm pregnant. The mask cracked. For just a moment, she saw everything, shock, fear, wonder, panic, flash across his face before the cold control slammed back down. Are you certain? For tests certain. 8 weeks certain. Hajun, I'm not here to trap you or demand anything. But you deserve to know. He moved then, crossing the distance between them in 3 long strides. His hands came up as if to touch her, then dropped. You need to leave Seoul. Tonight. I'll arrange everything, money, papers, protection. You can go anywhere, raise the child anywhere, but you cannot stay here. Why? Because I'm an inconvenience to your criminal empire. Because my aunt wants me dead. The words exploded from him. Madam Hygiene has been trying to take control of the syndicate since my father died. The only reason I'm still breathing is because the old guard is loyal and I'm the heir. But if she finds out about you, about the baby, she'll use you to destroy me. She'll torture you for leverage, and when she's done, she'll kill you both and leave your bodies where I can find them. Is that clear enough? The brutality of it hit her like a slap. This wasn't some romantic thriller where love conquered all. This was real, and people really died. Then come with me, she whispered. Leave all this. We can go together, start over somewhere they can't find us. Something like agony crossed his face. I can't. If I run, they'll hunt us both. And if I'm not here to hold the syndicate together, it fractures, and a lot of people who depend on that fragile piece die in the crossfire. I'm trapped, Natasha. I've been trapped since the day I was born into this name. So what? I just leave? Raise your child alone while you play mob boss? Yes. His voice was iron. It's the only way to keep you safe. Well, I'm not going. The words surprised her as much as him. But as soon as she said them, she knew they were true. I'm not running halfway around the world because you're scared. If you want me gone, you'll have to throw me out. Natasha, I'm staying. I'm having this baby. And you don't get to make decisions for me just because you're some big, scary crime lord. I've been taking care of myself my whole life, and I'll keep doing it with or without you. She was shaking now, adrenaline and fear and stubborn determination coursing through her. But I'm giving you a choice. You can be a father, or you can be a stranger. But either way, I'm not disappearing to make your life easier. For a long moment, Ha-jun just stared at her. Then, to her absolute shock, he laughed a short, bitter sound. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the most foolish. Can't I be both? He moved close enough that she could feel the heat of him, close enough that when he lifted his hand to her face, she let him. His thumb traced her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. If you stay, I can't protect you from everything. I can give you a safe house, bodyguards, every precaution possible, but there are no guarantees in my world. You could die. The baby could die. I could die, and you'd be left with nothing but ghosts and regrets. Then I guess we'd better make sure we survive. She leaned into his touch, desperate for this connection. I'm not asking for forever, Ha-jun. I'm just asking for a chance. Let me stay. Let us try. He kissed her then, and it tasted like goodbye and hello all at once, like he was trying to memorize her mouth with his. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. Okay, he breathed. Okay, but we do this my way. My rules. Agreed. Agreed. If you're hooked on this story, hit that like button and subscribe for part 2. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next when Natasha enters Ha-jun's dangerous world. Drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on, Team Natasha or Team Ha-jun. The safe house was beautiful. Natasha hadn't expected that. Somehow she'd imagined something stark and industrial, all concrete and security cameras. Instead, Ha-jun took her to a traditional hammock tucked away in buckshin, all wooden beams and paper doors, with a courtyard garden that made her want to cry with its quiet beauty. It was a secret pocket of peace in the heart of the city's chaos. This was my mother's, Ha-jun explained as he showed her through rooms that smelled of cedar and history. She died when I was 12. My father kept it empty after, couldn't bear to sell it or let anyone else live here. But it's safe. No one in the syndicate knows about it except Minesio, and he'd die before betraying me. Minesio? My childhood friend. My right hand. You'll meet him tomorrow. Ha-jun paused in what would be her bedroom, looking uncomfortable in a way that was almost endearing. He'll be responsible for your security when I can't be here, which will be often. I have obligations. Business that can't wait just because. Because you knocked up a photographer? Natasha supplied wryly. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Something like that. Are you sure about this, Natasha? Last chance to run. She looked around the room, at the traditional floor cushions and the modern amenities blended seamlessly together, at the window overlooking the garden where moonlight painted everything silver. She thought about the baby growing inside her, about the impossibility of this whole situation, about how every rational bone in her body was screaming that this was insane. I'm sure, she said. He nodded slowly. Then there are rules. You don't leave this house without Minesio or myself. You don't tell anyone where you are. If you need to contact your family or friends, it goes through me first so we can make sure it's not traced. And if I tell you to hide, to run, to do anything, you do it without question. Your safety and the baby's safety come before everything. Including me. Understood. Ha-jun. Promise me, Natasha. Promise me that if it comes down to it, you'll choose the baby over me. The intensity in his eyes was almost painful to witness. She crossed to him, took his hands in hers. I promise. But you have to promise me something too. What? That you'll try. To be here, to be present, to let yourself imagine a future beyond all this darkness. Even if it's just for a little while. Can you do that? For the first time since she'd found him again, Ha-jun's control truly cracked. He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, and she felt him shaking. I don't know how to be what you need, he confessed, voice muffled against her shoulder. I've been violence and power and cold calculation for so long, I'm not sure there's anything else left in me. What if I can't do this? What if I'm my father's son and all I know is how to destroy? Natasha held him tighter. Then we figure it out together. One day at a time. One choice at a time. You're not your father, Ha-jun. You're yourself. And that's enough. He kissed her then, desperate and searching, like he was trying to find salvation in her mouth. She kissed him back with equal fervor, and when they tumbled onto the sleeping mat together, it felt less like passion and more like a promise. They made love slowly this time, learning each other's bodies with new urgency, knowing that this wasn't just one stolen night anymore, but the beginning of something that could save them or destroy them both. Afterward, lying tangled together while Seoul hummed beyond the walls, Hajun traced patterns on her bare stomach. "I didn't think I'd ever have this," he murmured. "A child. A family. I assumed I'd die young, violently alone. That was acceptable. Expected, even. But now you have something to lose," Natasha finished. "Now I have everything to lose." He met her eyes. "That makes me more dangerous than I've ever been. There's nothing I won't do to protect you both. Nothing. Do you understand what that means?" She thought about Detective Park's warnings, about the photos of Hajun surrounded by hard men in the night. She thought about the fact that the man whose child she carried had probably killed people, had definitely hurt people, lived in a world where violence was currency. And she thought about the loneliness in his eyes that first night, the way he looked at the city like a prisoner staring through bars. "I understand," she said. "And I'm still here." He kissed her forehead gently. "Then rest. Tomorrow starts your new life." But sleep wouldn't come easily. Natasha lay awake long after Hajun's breathing evened out, staring at the ceiling and wondering what she'd truly signed up for. Somewhere in the night, a siren wailed. Dogs barked. The city lived and breathed and killed around them, indifferent to one pregnant woman's leap of faith. She placed her hand over Hajun's on her stomach and let herself hope. The story continues in ways you won't believe. If you want to see Natasha and Hajun's fight for survival, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Comment below. Would you risk everything for love like Natasha did?